Hey everyone, and welcome. Have you ever looked at your favorite apps and wondered, man, how does that even work? Or maybe you've thought about building something cool yourself. Well, you are in the exact right place. Today, we're taking our very first step into the world of programming with one of the most powerful and honestly, one of the most beginner-friendly languages out there, Python. Chalo, let's get started.
But hey, before we start writing any code, let me ask you a quick question. Just think about the apps you use literally every single day. Your go-tos, like YouTube, Instagram, and Spotify. What's the one piece of technology that ties all of them together?
That's right, they are all built using Python. From the algorithm that recommends your next video on YouTube to the feed on Instagram, Python is the engine running behind the scenes of these massive applications. And guess what? In the next few minutes, you're going to learn the absolute basics of how to speak its language.
So here's our game plan for today. First, we're going to get your digital workspace all set up. Then, and this is a huge moment, you'll write and run your very first program. After that, we'll get into how to make your code remember things using variables and how to work with text using strings. And to wrap it all up, you'll get to tackle your first coding challenge to really lock in those new skills. You ready? Let's do this. Every artist needs a studio, right? And every programmer needs a good workspace, so don't think of this as a boring setup step. This is you, right now, setting up your own digital workshop where you're going to create some amazing things. Let's get our tools ready. Okay, it's just 4 simple steps. I'll walk you through it. First, just go to python.org and download the latest version for your computer. Now listen up, this next part is super important. While you're installing it, you're going to see a little checkbox that says Add Python to Path. You have to make sure you tick that box. Trust me. It's like adding Python's address to your computer's contacts so it's easy to call up from everywhere. Next, you need a good code editor. I highly recommend Visual Studio Code. Everyone just calls it VS Code. It's free, it's powerful, and it's what the pros use. Once you've got VS Code open, just go to the Extensions tab, search for Python, and install the official one made by Microsoft. All right, to make sure everything's working perfectly, open up your command line tool. On a Mac, it's called Terminal. On Windows, it's Command Prompt. Just type this exact command, Python, then a space, then 2 dashes, and then the word version. Hit Enter. If you see Python and a version number like 3 point something pop up, then congratulations, you are officially set up and ready to code.
Okay, setup's done. Now for the really fun part, the magic. It is time to write your very first line of code. This is the moment you officially become a programmer. Let's go.
Our very first command is going to be print. Think of print as your voice. It's how you tell the computer, hey, display this for me. For a beginner, this is the most important tool you have because it lets you see exactly what your code is doing at any point. It's your way of getting feedback.
Okay, let's actually do it. In VS Code, make a new file and save it as hello.py. That .py at the end is really important. Inside that file, you're just going to type this one line. Print, open parentheses, double quotes, hello world, close quotes, and close parentheses. Perfect. Now, jump back to your terminal, make sure you're in the same folder where you saved the file, and type python hello.py. Hit enter, and boom! You should see hello world printed right there on your screen. Just take a second and look at that. You just gave the computer an instruction, and it listened. You are officially a programmer now. How cool is that?
So now that we can make the computer talk, let's teach it how to remember things. And for that, we use something called variables. The absolute easiest way to think about them is to just picture them as labeled boxes where you can store any piece of information you want. So really, a variable is just a name you give to a piece of data. That's it. We create one using the equal sign, which in programming we call the assignment operator. You're not saying two things are equal. What you're really saying is, hey, take this value on the right and store it inside the box with this label on the left. Now, of course, there are a few rules for naming these boxes just to keep things from raking. First, names have to start with a letter or an underscore. Never, ever start with a number. That's a super common mistake that'll give you an error right away. Also, keep them simple, no special characters. And some words, like if or print, are special keywords in Python, so we can't use those for our variable names. And finally, just remember that Python is case-sensitive. That means a variable named age with a small a is a completely different box from age with a capital A. So, those are the rules. But let me give you a few tips that pro developers use all the time. First, always use descriptive names. Something like user_age equals 25 is way better than x equals 25. It just makes your code so much easier to read. The standard style in Python is something called snake case. It's just all lowercase words separated by underscores. Lastly, you can add comments to your code using the hash symbol.
The computer completely ignores anything after it on that line, but it's a lifesaver for explaining your code to your future self or to other people on your team.
Think about it. So much of what we do on computers is just text, right? Usernames, passwords, messages, search queries, everything. In Python, any piece of text that you wrap in quotes is called a string. So let's dive into how we can work with them. Okay, this is probably the single most important thing to understand about strings in Python. They are immutable. Now, that's a fancy word, but all it means is that once you create a string, you cannot change it. For example, if we have a variable name that's storing Rohit, you can't just go in and try to change the first letter to an M. Python will just flat out refuse to do it. And this is actually a really good safety feature in bigger programs.
And if you try to do what we just saw, you're gonna get this big, scary-looking type error. But listen, don't be afraid of errors. Errors are your friends. They're just clues that help you fix your code. This one is just Python's way of clearly telling you, hey, you're trying to change a part of a string, and I told you that's not allowed. It's just enforcing that immutability rule we talked about.
So, what's the right way to do this then? Well, the key is you don't change the original string. You build a new one. See, in Python, every character in a string has a position, or an index, and it always starts from 0. So in Rohit, R is at index 0, O is at 1, and so on. We can grab a slice of that string. Here, name one strip means give me everything from position 1 all the way to the end. We then just take our new letter M and add it to that slice. This creates a brand new string, Mohit, which we can save. This is the main idea. You don't modify strings, you always create new ones. Okay, so how do we actually combine our variables with text? Let me show you. On the left is the old way, where you have to join everything with plus signs. It works, but man, it gets messy really fast, especially because you have to manually convert numbers into strings. But on the right, that's the modern, clean, professional way, f-strings. By just putting a little f right before the first quote, you can put your variables directly inside the string using these curly braces. It is so much cleaner, easier to read, and you're way less likely to make mistakes. Just don't forget that f at the beginning. This is the way you should always do it. And Python also gives you a bunch of awesome built-in tools, they're called methods, to play with strings. For example, .uppercase makes everything uppercase. .strip is a lifesaver. It removes any extra spaces from the beginning or end of a string. .replace lets you swap out one piece of a string for another. And .split can break a whole sentence into a list of individual words. Just remember that main rule. Because strings are immutable, every single one of these methods gives you back a brand new string. The original one is never touched. All right, we have covered a ton of ground, haven't we? We got your computer set up, we learned how to print things, how to store data and variables, and how to work with text using strings. Now, theory is great, but coding is a practical skill. The absolute best way to learn is by doing. So, it's time for your first coding challenge. Okay, here's your mission, should you choose to accept it. Create a simple digital profile card. I want you to open up VS Code, create a new file, and just follow these steps. Make 3 variables, one for your name, one for your city, and one for your favorite food. Put your own info in there, then use just one single print function with an F string to combine them all into a sentence. Go ahead and pause the explainer right here and give it a real shot.
All right, how did it go? I bet you nailed it. Seriously, you did it. Whether it took you 1 minute or 10 minutes, it doesn't matter. You just took separate pieces of information, you stored them in labeled boxes, and then you combine them into a meaningful sentence that a person can read. That's not just some silly exercise. That is the very essence of what programming is. You wrote a real, useful Python program. Take a second to appreciate that. It's a massive first step.
So let's just wrap up with this one thought. You now have the fundamental power of a programmer. You can make a computer listen and respond. You can make it remember things and communicate. So the question is no longer if you can code. The question now is, what are you going to build? What will you make the computer say next? If you found this helpful, a like would be amazing, and make sure you subscribe for more. Thanks so much for joining me, and I will see you in the next one.